This week on Hatter or Lower, we are joined by yet another very special guest. A warm welcome to the podcast. A legend of the game. A man who has over 2,000 games to his name as both a player and a manager. It's the legendary Brian Horton. How are you getting on today, Nobby?
Yeah, all good, thank you. It's a nice morning here. Great speaking to you about my days. And I love doing it, it brings back lots of great memories, and, still speak to, and we have a reunion every now and again with the gaffer David Fleet and all the players, and it's brilliant days.
It's so lovely, and I really do like seeing those photos of the team of the 80s, the Pleaty boys all getting together, whether it's for a round of golf or just for lunch. I really, really enjoy it, and Luton Town fans just love to see it as well. It's tremendous.
Thank you.
But before we kick off with Nobby, to those watching on YouTube, if you love content from the We Are Luton Town podcast, please like this video. It only takes a second, and subscribe to our channel for more content. We also have a dedicated Luton Town Ladies podcast, Opposition Views, Championship Chat, as well as interviews like this with former Luton Town legends. Also, a big shout out to our audio partner, Blackstar, who keep us sounding great and give us cool things like these headphones. A big shout out to the Record Shop in Amersham. If you like vinyl, it never goes out of fashion. Go check them out in Amersham. That's the Record Shop. So, Nobby, look, your career is just so vast. Over 2,000 games as a player and a manager. We'd really need a 2 or 3-parter to really get into the nitty-gritty. But let's go over the broad strokes of your career. So you started out as at Walsall as a young nipper, doing your apprenticeship, and you got released and you had to work your way up the game at Hednesford in the regional West Midlands League. And before signing with Port Vale, you made your debut in the professional game in the actual Football League at the age of 21. So how were those early years of your career? Did you ever contemplate chucking it all in?
When I was told they wasn't keeping me at Walsall, it broke my heart, obviously. That's all I'd ever wanted to be. So 15 to 17 as an apprentice there, and I'd broken into the reserve side, and I thought I'd done well. There was then another lad called Jeff Morris, who was a left winger, and me, that had broken into the reserves out of about 15 apprentices. So I thought I'd done enough to earn a pro contract, but when the manager told me, it was really absolutely out of the blue. And a lot of the professional came to me who was playing with the reserves, and they were saying the same thing. We couldn't believe that they're letting you go. So what did I do? I went on the building. A relation of mine got me a job on the building. I hadn't got a clue about the building trade, but a guy I worked with, he was the top guy, and he taught me a hell of a lot over the 4 years I was with him on the building. I didn't want to be on the building, obviously, but I went to Ensford Town, my local team, at 17. Good standard, non-league, West Midland League. They had a good side, some ex-professional players playing in it, and we had a really good team. And so there for 4 years, I was earning a fortune. I was like the George Best of Cannock and Ensford. It was like, good money on the building, good money playing for Ensford. We were winning all the time, win bonus. So it was a great period of my life, to be perfectly truthful, but I still wanted to be a footballer.
Mm-hmm. So when you've been around the game for a long time, until very recently, so do you think it's actually harder for youngsters to break into football now, or was it harder back in the day?
There's probably more apprentices than there is today to break in as to be a professional. But listen, whatever way you do it, it's very tough to get into being a professional footballer. And I was lucky that Gordon Lee, God bless him, he was a proper football man, and he was from Ensford. So people were telling him about me, and he was manager of Port Vale. So he came to see me play at Brierley Hill one evening, and the story goes that he stayed after the game to talk to the secretary, because Granville Palin, who was the player manager, was playing in the game and obviously couldn't speak to him. So he met up with the the secretary of Ensford Town. He bought him a shandy, and they had discussions about me going to Port Vale, and that's how that story came out, that I was bought for a pint of shandy going to Port Vale.
Well, after 200 appearances at Port Vale, you were bought for a little bit more than a pint of shandy. You were bought for £30,000. So you were a key component of that Brighton team, and you're still remembered very fondly by Brighton fans of all ages. You were their captain, and you were an integral part of one of their most successful periods in football, pretty much until recent times. You were vital in promotions from the third division to the first division, and you were named in the PFA Team of the Year both seasons that you achieved promotion. What a time at Brighton!
It was incredible. Port Vale were playing at Crystal Palace on the Tuesday night before the deadline day, transfer deadline day, which was on the Thursday, and so before the game, we were doing well actually, and I'd scored 2 goals against Palace. Terry Venables was the manager, and I'd scored 2 goals against them at Vale Park. So before the game down there, a guy came and stopped me going out to warm up, and he said, "Look, Terry Venables has told me to tell you that we're coming for you in the summer. Don't sign for anyone else." So I thought, wow. Anyway, we drew 2-2, and for once we were up there. There was Brighton, Millwall, Palace, us, and we were up there challenging for promotion. And so we drew again. We came, not again, but we drew the game, which is a good result. We came in the dressing room. Roy Sproson again, God bless him, he was a great teammate plus manager. He said, "Nobby, we've actually sold you today to Crystal Palace, and you need to go because the club need the money." All the players knew on the coach going down from Stoke to London that I was going, apart from me. They hadn't told me. So here we go. What do I do? So there was a stretch Granada waiting for me outside to take me to Brighton to meet Peter Taylor, the manager, after the game. So straight down to London. They had to stop off and tell my wife what had happened because there was no mobile phones or anything in those days to be able to contact. So down to Brighton I went, 30 grand. Peter Taylor signed me, and he resigned at the end of the season. In fact, he went back with Brian Clough, and Alan Murray took over, and then that was the start of the period that we had. But I thought Alan Murray was 34, World Cup player, top player. Even in training, he was top player. I thought, oh, my position could be in jeopardy if he comes in player manager. And he saw us play through the pre-season. We had a good pre-season. We beat Wolves, who were a top side then, and that was my boyhood team, Wolves. So we'd beaten them, and he retired. He said, "I can't get in that team," and off we went and got promotion in the first year. I mean, we should have won the league. We were up with about 4 games to go, and it gets in a little heady. You know, you're already up and you virtually stop. So and he was getting more and more annoyed because he wanted to be the champions, and Mansfield were champions, and we'd beaten them twice. We'd beaten them 5 at the Goldstone. So hence I went to Brighton, and my period down there, and still is with the club. It was absolutely fantastic, and as you say, promotion first year, missed out on goal difference the following year. Tottenham and Southampton went up, and then the following year we had to win at Newcastle on the last Saturday to make sure that we went up, and we did. I scored a goal in that game with a header from a corner, and it was a great time of my life.
It's amazing. I love that transfer story because you don't really hear the ins and outs of transfer stories and moves this day. So okay, so first you were sold for a pint of shandy, then you were sold for 30k. So your move to Luton Town was an interesting one because you were quite a vital player for Brighton. You were their captain, and then you transferred to Luton at the age of 31 or 32. What were the circumstances behind your move to Luton Town, and did you have any doubts considering Tony Grealish was going the other way?
I got a phone call. Well, to tell the story, we'd stayed up, and Alan Mullery, who I've gotten great with and still do, great manager for me, because he just demanded more and more and more, never satisfied with anything. He used to go on to, but that's the way I was. That's the way I thought about the game as well. Anyway, I just bought a new house in Brighton, in Hove Park, which is a fantastic house. And my wife was at work. We didn't have the children then, and I'm sunbathing in the back garden, which stayed up, and everything was okay. We had to win our last 4 games of that season to stay up, which we did. We won the 4, and we stayed up. So I thought everything was hunky dory. Anyway, knock on the door, and it's the gaffer, and I said, "Gaffer coming in. What's the problem?" He said, "I've just resigned." I said, "What do you mean you've just resigned?" He said, "Well, they want to sell Mark Lawrenson to Liverpool. They want to sell you. They want to sell John Gregory. They want to sell Peter O'Sullivan." And he just said, which I knew he would. He said, "I've just told them where to stick it, basically. And I've resigned." He said, "So they want you to go as well." He said, stay your ground. I've got another year on my contract to go." Anyway, Mike Bailey came in, and he made it quite clear that he didn't want me. He'd take the captaincy off me and stuff like that, which I thought was a bit naughty. And I thought I'd get on well with him because he was a similar player to Alan Murray. And a similar player, well, they're better players than me. I mean, they were both, icons of the teams they played for. Mike Bailey, as I said, for my old club, Wolverhampton Wanderers. And so I saw the chairman. I went to the chairman, and the chairman said, "Capitano," which he used to call me all the time. "Capitano, I don't want you to go." He said, "But I've got to back the manager, and if he wants you to go, then I've got to do that. I'll look after you. I'll pay you every penny that we owe you." And so then I had some interesting phone calls, because then he got out. I could have gone to Burnley. I could have gone to Chelsea. And all of a sudden, I've got Newcastle. Arthur Cox, who'd given me a free transfer at Walsall, wanted me at Newcastle. So you can guess what I told him. And so the next call was David Pleat. And I went with him. With my accountant, called Brennan. He was my accountant. He's more like an advisor, because he was an accountant, and he was just a great guy. And again, God bless him. And off we went to see David Pleat. And the minute we spoke, there was no other decision to make. It was just football, 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 football. And there you go. That's when I signed that day. And
it's a nice suit.
It's a nice jacket and trousers, and the gaffer's just casual. So, listen, we speak every week, David Pleat and I, and he is, as the gaffer, Alan Murray and Gordon Lee, 3 absolute icons of football that I learned such a lot from, and David obviously is one of them.
That's amazing. So, did you know David Pleat before you signed for Luton?
No, never met him before, and he said, "I'll make you captain." So as you said, Tony Grealish is going out, Alan West going out, Paul Price going out. So 3 went out. I came in. He made me captain straight away. Got on great with the lads. We had a great pre-season. We won our first 2 games and then lost 2. And then we only lost 2 of the next 38. And we were champions by a million miles. We were the best side in the league. He wanted us to play football. He wouldn't accept long ball football. He was just a football purist, which he is, which I tried to take into my managerial positions, that I wanted him to play football. I would have hated to play in a long ball team, where they're bypassing midfield and not getting a kick of the ball. So I just got on great with him, and as I said, we still have reunions now, and he's just an absolute top guy.
So, do you remember your debut for Luton?
Luton, we played Charlton at home.
Well done! That's incredible. What a memory.
I've got a good football memory, and but it's another reason why I remember that game, because Alan Murray got the Charlton job, and he rang me. He said, "Nobby, I want you to come to Charlton." I said, "Gaffer, I've literally signed for Luton Town a few days ago, so I can't get out of that." I might have gone with him to Charlton, because I could have probably carried on living in Brighton and commuted to Charlton, where I couldn't really commute to Luton. So it's ironic that first game of the season, who do we get? Charlton, 3-0. And I got man of the match. I'm bragging now, and he was gutted because we'd beat him 3-0. But yeah. So then we won the next one, and then we lost 2 on the spin. We lost to, I think it was Sheffield Wednesday, Jack Charlton at home, and we went to I think it was Wrexham, I think, and lost. So we'd won 2, lost 2. And we had a team meeting, and the gaffer loved a team meeting, and he always started with the young ones first, and he changed the system. We'd won the first 2 games. He changed the system because when I went in, we played 4-3-3, and I was the older midfield player. Mossy on the left wing, Steve White, Brian Steen up front, Rick Hill, Lil Fashilo. That was our midfield 3. What a threesome that was, by the way. I mean, Lil was a fantastic player. He'd broken his leg against Brighton a couple of seasons before, but he was a good player. Rick Hill, probably one of the best players I ever played with, on the right-hand side of me. He did my running for 3 years, Ricky, but let me tell you, he was a fantastic player. It changed the team. So we had a meeting, and he used to go to the young lads first, the gaffer, for certain reasons. Then he'd go to Mitchell Thomas, and he'd go to Tim Breaker, and he'd go to the young ones and ask them their opinions. And he eventually came to me and he said, what do you think? And I said, I just don't understand why you've changed the system. We've won the first 2 games, and now you've changed the system. We've lost 2. I just don't get it. I just can't get it. Anyway, so we went back to the original system. And as I said, we only lost 2 games for the rest of that season, which was incredible.
It was a hell of a season, the 81-82 season, obviously with promotion. But staying with your debut, do you remember who lined up with you that day? Let's test that football memory.
Jake would be in goal. Kirk Stevens, Mal Donaghy, Mike Saxby, Mark Hazelwood, I would think. Yeah?
Yeah.
So then it'd be me, older midfield player, Ricky, Lil Fashilo. Left wing was Godfrey Ingram because Mossy was in America. Steen and White.
So other than David Moss, you pretty much nailed that. I'm amazed that you got Steve White and Godfrey Ingram because for that period, the team was largely set, wasn't it?
Well, Mossy was in America. That's why Godfrey played the 2 games, and then Mossy came back. And I don't think he missed a game. And again, what a top player. And obviously I took him with me in my managerial jobs, and we speak still almost every week. That side was just full of talent. It was a pleasure and an honour to be captain of that team.
Yeah, and it was an incredible side, but you were always described as the final piece of the jigsaw because remember, a lot of these players, Ricky Hill, Brian Steen, they've been at the club since the late 70s. But then Brian Horton comes in, the midfield general, El Capitan, and he propels the side to promotion. Like, we discussed that season, but did you just feel unbeatable? Because you were.
Yeah, and the good thing about it, we were so attacking, and we murdered Watford. I think we beat them 4-0 at home, and we were miles better than anybody in the league. David had produced an absolute classic team and a lot of those players, obviously, when we got promotion, carried on and were playing in the top division together. Then it not just on the field as well. We had such a good spirit off the field. We used to go and play snooker together down in Luton, and we were just a team straight away. And I was lucky enough to be captain of it. You know, I'd always been a captain at school and the county, and not so much Chelmsford Town because I was a younger one, but at Port Vale I was captain, at Brighton I was captain, and then David obviously saw that in me as well, and I enjoyed being captain. Not just on the field, just off the field as well, organising things. You know, let's have a Christmas bash together and go out together. And we did. We drank together and went out together and played golf together. And yeah, it's a great. John Sheridan, what a top physio. John comes through and it's David Coates, who was like David and me, an absolute football nut. All he talked about, David Coates, was football, which I enjoyed. But that's a great photograph. I've never seen that photograph before.
Yeah, so the lineup and these photos I've shown you, they're all courtesy of Hatters Heritage, a website that preserves the history of the club. Volunteers have gone through every single program and grabbed photos like this. Amazing, candid shots that essentially are lost to the sands of time. And if you go and look on your page, you'll find all your interviews, photos that you've probably never seen before, all up on the Hatters Heritage website. And we have this for every single player that's played for Luton Town, dating back to 1885. Obviously, we don't have photos for everyone, but what was the story about this picture? You're just candidly sitting on the physio table.
Yeah, I can't really. I didn't miss many games at Luton, to be honest. So whether that was just a mock-up one, I don't know. As I said, John Sheridan was a fantastic physio, and what he used to do was unbelievable. And some players used to complain if you were injured, you were in at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. You had treatments at lunchtime, and then you would go back at tea time. And players would moan about that, particularly going back at tea time. And John's answer was, I'm doing it for you, not for me. I want you to get back as fit as quickly as I can. And he was a top. He took a lot of flack off the players, as you can imagine. Physios and number twos, not so much the gaffer, but they do. The physios do, because they've got a hard job, haven't they? Because the players want to get back as quickly, and if they're not, and it's slow, they're getting annoyed with it all and impatient. But he was, which still is, as I say, he comes to the reunions, and he's just. We were just full of top people. That's why we were so successful. The physio, David Coates, the gaffer, players. It was just a great coming together.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories about John Sheridan. We spoke to Rob Johnson, and he pretty much credits John Sheridan for saving his career, because he had terrible, pretty much career-ending injuries before he'd even kicked a ball professionally.
He did.
Yeah, he's a good guy, Rob.
Rob's a very good guy, young player. Which again, the youth policy was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I signed Gary Parker, Frankie Bourne, and Ray Daniels when I got my first manager's job at Hull City, and the youth policy was great. Reserves good, but the whole club was run by the gaffer properly, from top to bottom, very, very professionally. And that's, again, what I learned when I went into my managerial career, to be like those three people that I've just mentioned, who had all different mentalities, if you like, with Gordon Lee and Alan, who played at the top level. The gaffer was a good player, apparently, but had a bad injury and finished. So I didn't see much of David in training. But it was just a coming together of everyone within the football club, from top to bottom. Obviously, the fans play a massive part in that, but the fans love that kind of football that we were playing. They really did.
I'm delighted you mentioned Hull. So when your time at Luton was up, you moved to Hull as player manager at first, leaving Luton at the age of around 36, I believe.
I had 3 years, 34 coming 35.
But that is still a tremendous innings back in those days, because sports science was at a very basic level.
It was, but I kept myself fit. Always did lots of things separate to what we did in training. I always believed in that I wanted to be as fit as I could. I kept weight down, 11.8, played at 11.8 for years and years and years and years. And David helped me. So what happened was I signed a 2-year contract, and obviously the game at Man City, which I'm sure you'll come to, was going to be my last game, because that was it, 2 years. Anyway, we'll talk about it when we talk about the Man City game, because I'm sure you want to talk about it.
So Man City, final game of the season. You have to win to stay up. And I'm sure you've had it from the other side, because you worked for Man City. You were their manager. As being a crucial part of that team that relegated Man City, were there ever any bad feelings at Man City towards you?
No, not really.
I thought you wouldn't have been asked that question before, because you probably talked about the end of the 82-83 season so many times.
Yes.
So I wanted to come at it from a different angle.
Okay. Well, I live in Manchester now, and after City days. I never moved, so commuted to all my other jobs. But obviously, when we put them down and I got the job, of course I got lots of flack. You were in that team that put us
Yeah.
down. Of course I was, but this is a different era now, and they still bring it up. I do. Man City look after me and my wife great when we go, as all my other clubs do. Luton do if I ring up. Brighton, Hull, Oxford, Port Vale, everywhere I've been. If I didn't mention a team, then Huddersfield. So, but Man City, because I live here, and I do a few things for them with going to talks and go and do things for them, and they look after us great. But so people still remind me of that day, even now. You were in that team to put us down, and I got more flack than I did actually. So if I go to a supporters club, again, it's one of the questions: how and why did you put us down? I said because we wanted to win. That's why. And I think one of the biggest reasons was they just needed to draw. We had to win. And in my mind, you cannot play for a draw. You can't play for a draw. And that was I think that was on our side, that we had to win. And we played really well that day. I forgot that Mossy didn't play in that game because he was injured. And Jake Finley didn't play because he was injured. But we went there to win, and we'd had such a. We played Everton on the Saturday previous. We scored first. Mossy scored first. We got beat 5-1 at home at Kenilworth Road. Howard Kendall was the manager, and then we went to Man United on the Monday away. And the gaffer pulled me. He said, "I'm going to put Ray Daniels and Gary Parker with you at Old Trafford." I said, "Gaffer, it's Moses, Wilkins, and Robson. You're putting me with two kids against them. Brian, don't worry, we're okay." So we played well, to be fair, and the kids played well, and so I signed them eventually to Hull City. But we got beat 3-1. And then every single result went against us on the Tuesday night, and now we end up in the bottom two, where we've got to now go to Man City and win. But David had arranged a testimonial game for Ross Jenkins after that Monday game. It was either the Tuesday or the Wednesday. Me and the gaffer disagree about this one because I thought it was on a Wednesday. Anyway, he changed the side, and they beat us easy. Watford, they had a good side, to be fair, but they beat us easy. So we lost to Everton, to Man United and Watford. Now we've got to go to Man City on the Saturday and win. Takes some doing, but our mentality was right. He took us to Stafford overnight, chilled out a little bit, had a little bit of togetherness, if you like, and we went and played well. Again, we went for it, and Raddy, God bless him, what a good player Raddy was, and what a good person. Comes up with a goal, a couple of minutes in, and it was, I just given the ball away, by the way, in the 90th minute. I just give it the ball away, and I got it back, and we went out to Steenie. He crossed it, came back to him, crossed it again, headed out, and Raddy comes on, and which he was very capable of, and struck a great goal. So, and then it was crazy at the end of the game because, well, we'd obviously beaten them, and the gaffer said, "I'm going for a drink with our managerial team." Tony Book was caretaker manager that day with another manager, and they said, "Go and have a drink, and we'll get together." And we had a punch up coming off, enter lifesaver, Raddy, yeah, what a top guy, and we ended up having a punch up the tunnel. I said to the gaffer, "We can't go in the players' bar. We just had a fight with them all. We can't go in there. We just put them down," and which I would have been the same. So great photographs, yeah.
It
Fantastic.
is absolutely sensational. It really is.
Yeah,
That season.
Raddy had that in his locker, and not many people have that in a locker to be able to shoot from that distance and with power and strength. And so we put them down, and I had to live with that, and I still have to live with it now. Wants to live it in Manchester.
Yeah. So when I asked you the question, I said, "Do you get stick from Man City?" You said no, and then you went on talking about how much stick you get from Man City
Well,
fans.
I didn't want to say no because it's not stick. It's not stick. No, to be fair. It's well, it could be stick actually. It could be.
So, it is light-hearted banter, nothing to worry about. But in addition to Hull, you've managed Oxford, Man City, Huddersfield, Brighton, Port Vale, Macclesfield, before joining forces with Phil Brown for stints at Hull City, then Macclesfield, later briefly at Swindon. And there was also a little stint with Paul Dickov at Southend in the mix there. So, how do you remember all the clubs you've been at?
Oh,
Have I just helped you out there?
Well, no, because Paul Dickoff was at Doncaster.
Oh, there we go. A flaw in my research.
Yes, and it's like a director of football with Phil Brown at Southend.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Which club was the best for you, in your opinion? How was it going back to Brighton? We've already talked about going back to Man City.
I can't. I've been lucky that every single one, as you said, we were just saying about being able to go back to them and all. You know, my first job was player manager at All City promotion first year. That was incredible. Oxford was Kevin Maxwell was my chairman. I couldn't have asked for a better chairman, you know, and obviously they got a lot of flack from the Oxford fans, but Kevin was fantastic with me. Bill Bell, chairman at Port Vale for 5 years. I've been lucky that I've been at stability within being a manager, and sometimes, not sometimes, eventually you go through bad times, and that's when you need strong people. When supporters are maybe having a pop, we need to change the manager. The chairman stay strong and. You know, I'm in a lucky band of about 30 odd people who've done 1,000 games. And it's tough because you are going to have some hard times in those days, particularly when if you're managing, you know, like Brighton had gone to Gillingham. It's all the Goldstone Ground, which is a fantastic stadium to play in, 30 odd thousand people. And all of a sudden they're playing at Gillingham with 3 or 4 thousand people. The club had virtually gone, you know, so I kept them up, although it was bottom. You know, they couldn't have gone any worse. Eventually, they went back to Brighton, played at Withdean, where I used to. My first coaching job when I was playing for Brighton was coaching Westdean. They trained at Withdean Stadium, and I was still playing for Brighton then. So that's ironic. And if they'd have gone back to Withdean, if I'd have been manager, I might have stayed there because I loved my time in Brighton. I still do. I'm going back to do a thing for prostate cancer in a couple of weeks' time. But all my old clubs I can go back to, and we're looked after unbelievable. All the fans, I never have a problem with any club that I go back to, you know, because some managers do, you know, where you don't get on with the fans. And to do over 1,000 and do what I've done is, I mean, I'm immensely proud of it, to be perfectly truthful. And the biggest thing that for me is getting a free transfer at Walsall at 17 and coming back and playing 700 games and managing 1,000 games. That gives me the biggest thrill, if that's the right word, the biggest, yeah, thrill about doing that.
It's tremendous longevity, and you were so fortunate that you never picked up a serious injury, because you would never have racked up those numbers. That there are players that finish professional careers spanning a decade or more, and they only played like 300, 400 times.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely tremendous numbers, considering you actually took your first steps on the professional journey at the age of 21, which is a relatively late start. So I was talking to Dave Mooney from the Blue Moon Man City podcast, and he mentioned to me that the football that was played at Man City under Brian Horton was the best football he had ever seen at Man City in his time following the club, with the exception of Pep Guardiola's football recently.
Yes, I'll have to accept that one.
It's absolutely sensational. It really is. So I would like to discuss prostate cancer and the importance of prostate cancer awareness. So, firstly, how is your health now? And can you take us on your journey of battling prostate cancer?
But to start with, Steve Parkin, who was with Phil Brown and myself at Hull City, Steve was first team coach, and now he's at Wrexham as assistant manager, and occasionally stays with me because he still lives over in Yorkshire and commutes to Wrexham. So occasionally stays with me, so then he can just pop back to Wrexham in the morning. And he'd been for a medical through the League Managers Association, the LMA. Who they pay for us to have a medical, and I'd never had one because I didn't feel I needed one. I was 73, 4, and I felt as good as anything. Anyway, he said, "Why don't you just go and have one?" It's in Wilmslow, which is about 5 miles from where I live. And so I did, and took my wife. I paid for my wife to have hers. Went for mine. Dr. Sally found something. She asked me, "Have you got cancer in the family?" And I said, "Yeah, my mum, my grandma." My brother, as we speak, he's very poorly with it. Anyway, so I went and did some tests, and she said, I think you need to go, for a full body scan to Stockport Hospital. And so I went, and they found it. They found the prostate. It's very small. So luckily that I found it, thanks to Steve. And off we went with the procedure that I had to have. So I had to make a decision what I was going to have, the operation or the radiotherapy. So at the Man City Man United Cup final, not the last one when United won the one before, City beat United, John Bell there, Dr. John Bell, was Colin Bell, who's probably the best player that ever played for Man City. He works for the cancer in Didsbury. And so I said to my wife, and I hadn't told anybody because my daughter's expecting a baby, so I didn't want to tell her. A twin brother, I was going to tell, obviously, when I felt right, but I said to my wife, I'm going to go and speak to John Bell about the situation because I didn't know anything about it, what was happening. I didn't feel any problems. So I went to see him. He talked me through the things that would happen if I went to him in Didsbury, have the operation there. If I wanted radiotherapy, I would go to Macclesfield, which I chose, and went to Macclesfield to have radiotherapy.
So why were you so hesitant initially to step forward? Because people with a certain profile and platform are so crucial in raising awareness and getting people to get things checked when they wouldn't even think of doing it. And prostate cancer is so easy to check just with a PSA test.
Yeah. Well, again, I was at Brighton v Luton, and Brighton had invited me and Steve Foster to go on the pitch before the game because we both captained both teams, and Foster's a great friend and great player I played with. And I signed him at Oxford as my captain. And Mick Harford was there in the boardroom. So I get looked after great by Tony Bloom, the owner of Brighton. And we're in the guest lounge. And I went over to Mick and he said to me, Nobby, you're going to put it out in the open, aren't you? And I said, Mick, I'm not sure. I haven't told my daughter yet. I'm not sure if I want to. I haven't got my head around it at the moment. We said, well, I think you need to. I've had it and I've done it. And so I thought about it. Long and hard about whether I want everybody to know. And he was quite right. Mick said, look, you need to put it out to raise the awareness, it was like you just said. So that's what we did. So Prostate Cancer, they organised everything for me. All my old teams in the programmes, the TV in Manchester, Talk Sport, they arranged everything. So I put it out in the open and it's had a great response. And I'm pleased at it. I did some, as I said, doing it yesterday at Stockport County. And it's done me good. But in the end, so then I obviously had to tell my daughter and she broke down because it's that word, isn't it? Cancer. Everybody straight away goes cancer. It's an awful thing. So I put it out, and then to the point which I'm still doing now, not as much so, but I'll get a little bit of satisfaction as well by putting it out to raise straight away. Some of my best mates went, we're going to get tested now straight away because of what you're saying, and they did. They're clear, fine. Just go and get it done, as you said. The test, it takes minutes to do, and more people do it quicker and earlier, the better.
So what was the process like after you'd had your operation, then your radiotherapy? How is the road to recovery after that?
Well, the radiotherapy, I had to go for 5 days. It was before Christmas. So I had 5 days, weekends off. And then they gave me Christmas Day and Boxing Day off. I said, oh, thanks very much for that. So, but the guy that was doing a lot of the radiotherapy work at Mac, and they are fantastic, by the way. What they do is incredible. He's a Mactown fan. So when I was going for my treatment, all we wanted to talk about was football. We were just talking about football on it. And obviously I forgot the room what I was doing. So he said to me, you're going to ring the bell, aren't you? At the end. And I went,
I saw that video. That was tremendous. I love watching videos of people ringing the bell after finishing their treatment.
I didn't know about it. Honestly, I didn't know about it. So he said you're going to ring the bell at the end of it, and I said, so what's ringing the bell? So he explained it. Anyway, so on my last treatment of those 2 days just after Christmas, I was one of the last ones in. So when I came out, he said, "You're going to ring the bell." I said, "Well, there's no one here. Who am I going to ring the bell to?" And obviously it's going to go out viral, isn't it? So he said, "Hang on a minute." So he went and got the staff out the staff gun. So I rang the bell in front of them, and it went. It was fantastic how so many people. Put it out. Laura Wolf, who helped promote my book and everything. Laura, she runs the Northwest Football Awards. She put it out on Twitter for me, and it had unbelievable response.
It's amazing. It really is. And it's so important to raise awareness. Is there anything you'd like to say to the people watching and listening in terms of making sure that they go out and get checked?
Just go and get checked. I mean, it's just minutes, and you can do it yourself. If you go on, you can do it yourself. Just go and get tested, because if you have got it, the quicker they find it, the smaller it is. Like people have said to me that they didn't find mine, or I didn't find it till later on, and then it had spread to other parts of the body. If you find it quickly, and it is treatable, and just go and do it for yourself and for your family, basically.
Mm-hmm. It's important to get it checked before it's too late, because when it's too late, it is just too late. But Nobby, shall we end this podcast with a game of Hatter or Lower?
Yeah, if you want.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you the rules, okay? Hatter or Lower is powered by Hatter's Heritage, a website that does the important job of preserving the history of our club. They always need volunteers and patrons, and you can check them out at hattersheritage.co.uk or get in touch by Googling Hatter's Heritage. And that's exactly what Will from Luton Facts and Figures has done, to get the names and appearance totals for 20 Hatters. I then ask, who played more, player A or player B? The contender then has to guess who made more appearances for the Hatters and try and get as high up on our leaderboard as possible. It's now time to play Hatter or Lower, and this week's contender is legendary Luton Town player Brian Horton. How are the nerves?
Always nervous.
Right, so with this, they start easy, they get harder as I go on, okay?
Okay.
Who played more, Jake Finley or Les Seeley?
Jake Finley.
Incorrect. Jake Finley played 187 times for Luton Town. Les Seeley, 259.
Wow.
Yeah, Les Seeley was there for a while after you left. So these are all players that played with you during your time. Right, next up. Who played more, Brian Steen or Mitchell Thomas?
That's a tough one. I've got to go Brian Steen.
Correct! Brian Steen played 496 times for Luton Town. Mitchell Thomas, 341.
Wow.
They both racked up a lot of appearances. And obviously Bruno had been at the club from 77 to about 89, I think, and then he came back for a stint. Well, both of them actually had second times at the club, didn't they? Both Brian and Mitchell.
Yeah.
Right. Up and running. Next question. Who played more, Mark Hazelwood or Lil Ficillo?
Will Fisher.
Correct! Mark Hazelwood played 110 times for Luton Town. Lil Ficillo, 180.
Going well.
Yeah, going well so far. Right. Who played more, Steve White or Trevor Aylott?
Steve White.
Correct! Steve White played 83 times for Luton Town. Trevor Aylott, 35. Here we go. We're on a run here. You've gone back to that. You've regressed to steely determination that you portrayed on the pitch right now.
Always.
Game face is on. Who played more, Brian Horton or Clive Goodyear?
Clive Goodyear.
Incorrect! Brian Horton played 132 times for Luton Town. Clive Goodyear, 99. Oh, Nobby!
I would have never guessed that I'd played more than Clive.
Right, let's get back on. Okay, let's do this. Who played more, David Geddes or Ray Daniel?
Ray Daniels.
Correct! David Geddes played 17 times for Luton Town. Ray Daniels, 30. There we go. Back up and running. Who played more, Richard Money or Paul Elliott?
Paul Elliott.
Correct! Richard Money played 49 times for Luton Town. Paul Elliott, 73. What did you make of Richard Money's foray into management, being an ex-teammate of yours?
Yeah, I played against him when he was manager of Walsall, or managed against him. He always wanted to go into management. And yeah, I haven't seen Richard or heard about Richard for a long, long time. He was big mates with Mossy. They used to travel in together. But I don't know what he's doing now.
And also, I forgot to ask during the questions, did managing Luton ever pop up for you?
Yes, I met a chairman. I won't go into his name because it's not fair. I travelled down to meet him, and the words that I got back, why he didn't appoint me, he said he thought that I'd be too strong.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, we won't talk about that on the record then.
No.
Right, next question. Who played more, the wonderful Paul Walsh or Radian Tish, who scored that tremendous goal against Man City?
Oh, gosh, that's a tough one, really, but I've got to go Walshy.
Incorrect. Paul Walsh played 89 times for Luton Town. Radian Tish, 108.
Oh, that's close then.
Yeah, they're getting closer now. Who played more, Ricky Hill or Mal Donaghy?
Oh, that is a tough one. Both top players. Didn't mention Mal so much in when we were talking before. What a top player, could play in midfield, centre half, or alongside the centre half, left back. What a great guy as well. I'm going for Mal.
Incorrect. Ricky Hill played 508 times for Luton Town. Mal Donaghy, 488. Both incredible stints, though.
That's getting tough, that is. That's getting close.
You'll love this one then. Okay. Final question. So it's a coin flip now. Who played more, David Moss or Kirk Stevens?
Oh, gosh. Kirk Stevens.
Correct! David Moss played 245 times for Luton Town. Kirk Stevens, 248. Wow. That was tight.
And Kirk's such a good player. He's one of the gaffer's favourites, by the way. We tease him in that way. But Kirk does all the arrangements for our reunions, and as I say, keep in touch with Mossy. Such a close-knit team, that, and group of people and staff. But that was a tough one, that last one.
So, one thing I know about Kirk Stevens is that he never, ever talks about a certain goal on Boxing Day.
Wow.
Like I went to a meat evening with him, and people were like, under no circumstances are we going to mention his goal against Watford. But Nobby, your score is 6 out of 10. You've done so well there. You're in good company. You're alongside Rob Johnson, Marvin Johnson, current Luton Town chairman David Wilkinson, and Nick Owen, and also Lars Elstrup. You've done so well there. How does it feel?
I feel I should have done better. I mean, the two are tighter ones, but that's good questions.
Yeah, you should have been about an 8, I think.
I think I should have done, and the Ricky Hill one was that was a tough one.
Yeah, you did really well there, Nobby. You did really well. So, Nobby, where can people find you on social media?
I don't do fantastic amounts of social media, but
But you're on Twitter.
Twitter. I am addicted to Twitter, and uh, all I do, because I never go on Twitter and have a go at anybody. Never. It's all good stuff. Say Luton win, and I'll put it out. If Luton lose, and I don't want to put it on the manager and blame someone. All I do is good stuff, and I get great response from it from all my old clubs, and I am. It's first thing in the morning, Twitter and the Twitter news, and there was a good one about the gaffer's book the other day. David Please just done a book, and it was out on Twitter. And I actually said to him, Gaffer, it was out on Twitter this morning. And his words back to me was, I can't do Twitter, Brian, I can't.
Well, so for people watching and listening, that you can find Brian Horton on Twitter, Brian_Horton4. And there's also a book that you released about your 2000 games in management.
Yeah, it's gone great. When when I chose to do it, Tim Rich, the writer, who's just done David Pleat's book, by the way, Tim came and did a piece for Man City managers, and so I did my piece, and he said, "Wow, you got some great stories." He said, and then he said, so he looked it up straight away, and he was the one when you've done 2000 games in football. I said, "What?" And he said, "Do you ever fancy doing a book?" And I said, "Yes, I do." He said, wait till you finish in football, because there's always a last chapter. So that's what I did. I waited, and then when I said eventually I'm retiring, so then I got together with him. We did the book. It's gone great. The pandemic stopped a little bit of it, but I've gone around all my clubs, including Luton, signing and selling them, signed and everything. So it's been great, and it's like today talking to you about my old days. The book did that for me, and my kids had word in it. The gaffer did my foreword. My wife had a little bit in it. Some of my friends had, Mark Lawrenson, for example, did bits in it. So it was just a reminder of what you were saying, my career starting from my school days, where there's photographs of my school team. And it's just great to have done. There's a photo. It's on in my office there, and it was just great doing it and bringing back great memories again.
It's wonderful. So if you want to check out Brian Horton's book, 2000 Games, we'll put a link in the description where you can buy it from. There's also Amazon. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. You've been an absolute gem.
Brilliant, really enjoyed it, and regards to everyone at the Luton Town Football Club. Such a great club. I saw them play at Port Vale the other night, although they're a very young team. The manager was there, and I just wish them good luck for the start of next season, or this season coming.
Yeah, well, so this will be released in maybe a month or two. So I guess we'll see how the season goes, right? Any bold predictions for Luton Town ahead of the season?
Well, I think with the squad, the manager, the staff they've got, I think they'll be back up there fighting for promotion.
Let's hope so. And to all the people watching, if you've enjoyed this interview from the We Are Luton Town podcast, please like this video. It only takes a second. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out across all our socials. And a big shout out to our audio partner Blackstar and Carry On for all the toys required for making a podcast, and the record shop in Amersham, where vinyl never goes out of fashion. They have tons of LPs and lots of musical instruments. Thank you all for tuning in. Come on, you Hatters.